Put the boom back in the boom back.
Hey, this is Al. Welcome to ADV TV. In this episode, we visited lighthouses, some of the lighthouses in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. I'm here with Brian.
How you doing?
Our first stop, we went to a lighthouse in Stonington, Connecticut. It was the Stonington Harbor Lighthouse. The interesting fact behind this is when we were going down the road to this lighthouse, we passed a house that looked like it was built by Frank Lloyd Wright. But in reality, it was actually built by Rhode Island School of Design professor John Lincoln.
Yeah, I thought that was an amazing house. You know, when we saw it, we just thought this is a great view over the harbor. We also visited some other lighthouses in New England, and two other highlights that I'd like to mention is in Fall River, Massachusetts, there's the Bourne Flats Light. And something interesting about that is when you go up to the banks of the river to take a look at the light, you'll see that there's some cooling towers in the background, and we were convinced that it was a nuclear power plant. But in fact, it's one of the rare occasions that cooling towers are used for a coal-fired power plant. It was interesting to know that that what we saw in the distance was not a nuclear plant, but a coal plant that looks like a nuclear power plant. Nearby the Bourne Flats Lighthouse also is the Lizzie Borden House. We passed it by chance, got an opportunity to get out of the car, take some pictures. And last but not least, interesting story in Riverside, Rhode Island, which is a section of East Providence. There's what's called a skeletal frame lighthouse. And the reason it became a skeletal frame lighthouse is there was once a light there that actually exploded in a acetylene gas explosion. That's what they were using to power the light. 5 people were injured, and the lighthouse exploded into nothing but the foundation. Nobody was killed, but the lighthouse was destroyed. And when they decided to rebuild it, they actually just built a skeleton and put a light on it, because these lighthouses are obviously no longer manned by people. So that's sort of an inexpensive way to replace lighthouses, which is why it is important to appreciate, I believe, the lighthouses that we have remaining, because they're only built once. So those are some of the highlights of the lighthouses that we saw, and we've got 9 more to show you in this episode, so please enjoy.
Stonington Harbor is Connecticut's only port facing the Atlantic. Stonington Harbor Light was built in 1840. This building is notable among lighthouses of its period for its fanciful stonework with ornate cornices around the tower and granite lintels above doorways and windows. The lighthouse was originally built with a nearly flat roof that had simulated battlements, but it leaked so badly that 2 years later, local craftsmen were called in to install the gabled roof it has today. The lighthouse remained in use from its construction in 1840 until 1889, when it was supplanted by beacons on the harbor breakwaters. It had been a home to several keepers and their families, and until 1909, it continued to house keepers who tended the breakwater lights. Borden Flats Light is a historical lighthouse on the Taunton River in Fall River, Massachusetts. It is a tower on caisson type known as a spark plug lighthouse. The lighthouse was built in 1881 and added to the National Register of Historical Places as Borden Flats Light Station on June 15, 1987. By the mid-19th century, the city of Fall River had become a bustling textile mill town, with a regularly scheduled steamboat service to Providence, Rhode Island, and New York City. Fall River is located at the mouth of the Taunton River, where it meets Mount Hope Bay, which is an arm of Narragansett Bay. Prior to the lighthouse, an unlit day beacon was constructed to mark the spot of a dangerous reef near the center of the relatively shallow Mount Hope Bay. In June 1880, $25,000 was appropriated for the construction of a new lighthouse on Bourne Flats, which consisted of a 50-foot tall cast iron tower that included a keeper's quarters. The light went into service on October 1st, 1881, with a fourth-order Fresnel lens producing a fixed red light 47 feet above mean high water. Rainwater was collected in gutters and stored in a cistern to provide the keeper's water supply. The lighthouse, which sits in water open to the south, was battered in the hurricane of 1938. The storm left the structure with a pronounced tilt, which it still has. A new, wider casson was later added around the original for additional protection. In 1957, the lighthouse was electrified. It was automated in 1963. In 1977, its Fresnel lens was removed and replaced with a modern Vega VRB 25 lens. The fog bell remained in use until 1983, when it was replaced by an electronic foghorn. To make the lighthouse more visible against bridge supports and the towers of the power plant, the beacon now displays a red lantern roof and a red sectional band. Located at the entrance of the Providence River, the first lighthouse at Kiniket Point, Shoal, was established in 1868. A lantern and a fourth-order Fresnel lens were placed atop a granite tower. This fixed white light allowed the nearby Nayet Point light to be discontinued. In March of 1875, keeper Horace Arnold and his son barely escaped the dwelling as a heavy field of floating ice crushed into the structure and demolished it. The keeper and his son jumped onto a passing ice floe where they sat for several hours until a tug rescued them. Their furnishings and their possessions were lost. In 1883, the first Kiniket light was torn down, and the present cast iron spark plug type structure and pier were completed. Ellsworth Smith was serving as keeper of Kiniket in June 1922 when his wife Nellie gave poison tablets to the couple's 2-year-old and 5-year-old sons and took poison herself. When Keeper Smith returned from business ashore, he found the 2-year-old dead on a table and his wife expired on her bed. But the 5-year-old, disliking the taste of the tablet, had spat it out and was still alive. Smith rushed the boy ashore, where he was administered an antidote and taken to relatives. Kiniket Light was dark that evening. On a lighter note, Kiniket Light was automated in the 1960s and was one of the last acetylene gas-powered lights to switch to electricity. The Fuller Rock Light was a lighthouse in Providence, Rhode Island, destroyed in an explosion. It was replaced by a skeleton tower on the same foundation. The Fuller Rock sits adjacent to the channel in the Providence River, and as shipping traffic grew in the 1800s, attention was drawn to improving navigational aids for the port. In 1870, congressional appropriation provided for 3 lights in the area, one for Fuller Rock, another further upstream at Sassafras Point, and a third downstream at Pomham Rocks. The last reused the design of the Colchester Reef Light in Vermont, Lake Champlain. But the other 2 were built on a much simpler plan for a short wooden tower resting on a granite pier. These lights lacked dwellings. The keeper lived on shore and had to approach the lights by boat to tend them. Funds were provided for a keeper's dwelling, but property nearby could not be secured. Maintenance of the structure was a problem from early on, and in 1879 the Lighthouse Board reported the tower showed considerable decay. In 1889, some repairs to the foundation were made, including repointing of the pier and dumping riprap at the base. Staffing this light was difficult, and at least 3 keepers served no more than a year, so it was a candidate for automation. In 1918, it was converted to an automated acetylene beacon, with responsibility for its maintenance passing to the Ponham Rocks keeper. This beacon would prove its undoing. On February 4th, 1923, the tender brought a crew to replace the acetylene tanks. In the course of work, the old tanks exploded, injuring 5 of the men, though there were no fatalities. The tower, however, was completely destroyed. A skeleton tower was erected on the old pier. This was replaced in 1997 with a shorter tower on the same foundation. Hog Island Shoal Light, built in 1901, is a spark plug lighthouse on a shoal off Hog Island, Rhode Island. It is located about 600 feet southeast of the island at the entrance of Mount Hope Bay. Hog Island Shoal Light stands on a circular foundation set in approximately 10 feet of water and rising about 6 feet above the waterline. It was built to replace a lightship and was the last light station formally established in the state of Rhode Island. Mount Hope Bridge is also in Rhode Island. The Mount Hope Bridge is a 2-lane suspension bridge spanning the Mount Hope Bay in eastern Rhode Island, at one of the narrowest gaps in Narragansett Bay. The bridge connects the towns of Portsmouth and Bristol. It is part of Route 114. Its towers are 285 feet tall. The main span is a length of 1,200 feet, and it offers 135 feet of clearance over high tide. The bridge was completed in 1929 at a cost of $5 million. The bridge is also said to have the second highest suicide rate in the United States, behind only the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, California. Morgan Point Light is a lighthouse in Nonak, Connecticut, located on the mouth of the Mystic River. Morgan Point derives its name from the deacon James Morgan, who in 1712 gained ownership of the southern tip of the peninsula on the west side of the Mystic River. In 1831, the original 25-foot granite tower was built. There were many complaints that the light was too dim, so as shipbuilding in the area became more prominent, a new lighthouse was needed. The structure is of the same design as lighthouses at Sheffield Island in Norwalk and Great Captain Island in Greenwich, Old Field Point Light and Plum Island in New York, and Block Island North in Rhode Island. Morgan Point Light is a granite ashlar building with an octagonal tower rising above. It has a dentelated cornice and a slate shingled roof. The lightkeeper's room is fitted like a cabin. In 1919, Morgan Point Light was discontinued and later sold to a private owner. As of 1978, the light has been removed and the structure has been a private residence as it is today. Ned Point Light, Mattapoisett, Massachusetts. It was in 1837, during Mattapoisett's run as a significant shipbuilding harbor, that Ned's Point became home to a lighthouse after Congressman and ex-President John Quincy Adams helped convince Congress to approve $5,000 for the project. Early Mattapoisett industry included logging and farming, but Mattapoisett became known as a center for shipbuilding and whaling. Approximately 400 ships were built in the town's shipyards from 1740 until the 1870s, including the Acushnet, the ship that Moby Dick author Herman Melville sailed on and later deserted. When the Coast Guard decommissioned the light in 1952, an error put the 35-foot cone-shaped whitewashed stone lighthouse up for sale to the lowest bidder. James Stowell of Mattapoisett entered his bid for 1 cent. 8 pages of explanation from the government were sent to Stowell with the news that the sale had been canceled. More recently, repairs to the tower, including paint and crack and leak repairing, were completed in 2011. Ned Point is one of the smallest remaining working lighthouses on Buzzards Bay. New London Harbor Light is the nation's 5th oldest light station and the 7th oldest U.S. lighthouse. The original New London Light was made of stone and was 64 feet tall. The first lighting was November 7, 1761. The lighthouse helped guide American privateers to New London. The city Shaw family made a fortune in shipping during the colonial years leading to the American Revolution. In 1775, Shaw began to outfit ships of his line to wreak havoc on British supply ships. Under permission of Governor Jonathan Trumbull, this type of legal piracy, known as privateering, was extremely beneficial for the colonies as no real navy had yet been established by America. This activity prompted Benedict Arnold to target and burn down New London in 1781, landing his troops on the beach near the lighthouse. George Washington signed a contract expending $360 quarterly to supply the New London Harbor Light's 6 lamps with spermaceti whale oil in 1791. By 1799, the tower had developed a 10-foot crack from the top down. There were also complaints that the light was difficult to distinguish from the new homes being built nearby in the area. By 1801, the construction of a new lighthouse to replace the old tower had been completed. The new light is an 89-foot octagonal tower made of granite with a brownstone facade painted white. In 1931, the grounds were divided and the keeper's house sold to a private party who own it to this day. The U.S. Coast Guard kept ownership of the lighthouse. In 2013, New London Harbor Light was selected to represent Kiniket in the Postal Service's Lighthouses of New England stamp series. Pomham Rocks Light, also known as Pomham Lighthouse, is located in the Providence River about 200 yards off the shoreline of the Riverside neighborhood of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island. The light was established in 1871. Pomham Rocks Light was one of a group of New England lighthouses built to the same plan after an award-winning design by Vermont architect Albert R. Dow of Burlington. Pomham Lighthouse was deactivated from 1974 to 2006, but relighted on July 30th, 2006. In 1970, Pomham Rocks Light was sold to the American Lighthouse Foundation and is managed by the Friends of Pomham Rocks Lighthouse.
I watch it all as it crumbles around us, sitting staring at the walls as they're tumbling down. What makes it worse is that I know what's unfolding, and yet I go with the flow. It's as if I don't even notice it till it's too late, and it's all just crumbling around us, sitting staring at the walls as they're tumbling down. What makes it worse is that we know what's unfolding, and yet we go with the flow. It's as if we don't even notice it till it's too late. Living in an age of pesticides, picket fences and Stepford wives. Everybody mesmerized, watching the news, petrified, stressed inside, acting like it'll all be good, just basing our lives on Hollywood. But it ain't working out how we thought it should, no, disillusion, just sitting through it like nothing's wrong, comfortably numb, living in an age of fantasies, travesties and apathies. And watch it all as it crumbles around us, sitting staring at the walls as they're tumbling down. What makes it worse is that I know what's unfolding, and yet I go with the flow. It's as if I don't even notice it till it's too late, and it's all just crumbling around us, sitting staring at the walls as they're tumbling down. What makes it worse is that we know what's unfolding, and yet we go with the flow. It's as if we don't even notice it till it's too late. Hope it isn't too late. I hope it ain't too late. I hope it ain't too late. Living in a world of opposites, black, white, left, right consciousness. Everybody caught in this, walking on the edge of this bottomless pit. Better elevate, levitate, never wait till you get a break too late. Never hesitate, get a bit of cake, swallow a bit of truth with a sip of lemonade. Don't forget to swim when you get up in the lake. Don't forget to swim when you get up in the space. Sun meet earth, let me get a little taste. King meet surf, let me get up in your place. Let me get a shape, put a name to the face. Let me get a break from the game and the race. Let me meditate till my brain get erased, and my love is the same as my pain and my hate. Break, I fall apart and then back again. Won't keep repeating the pattern I'm standing in. Trying to pass this labyrinth, living in an ancient cosmic being. Thoughts of she whose conscious dream of breathing and eating, dying, returning to constantly. To watch it all as it crumbles around us, sitting staring at the walls as they're tumbling down. What makes it worse is that I know what's unfolding, and yet I go with the flow. It's as if I don't even notice